My name's Bruce Smart, also known as TeapotOne. I'm a motovlogging YouTuber, podcaster, tour guide and author.
Welcome to the Real Riders Podcast. My name's Simon Josie, and this is a podcast about motorcycling and filmmaking. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thanks for listening. As you heard, my guest for today's episode is Bruce Smart, universally recognised by the moniker TeapotOne. Bruce has a substantial following on YouTube, with his TeapotOne channel recently cracking the 100,000 subscriber mark. He's also known for his Brewtime podcast, which has almost 180 published episodes. Oh, and apparently he rode a superbike around the world. We'll get to my chat with Bruce shortly, but before we do that, I'd like to give a shout out to my friend Michael Heaton, who helped me make contact with Bruce. Michael occasionally hits the big time on Instagram, though he doesn't really know why. I'll put the links to Michael's Instagram and YouTube accounts in the show notes. I'm a little hesitant to promote the Adventure Motorcycle Film Festival in this episode, as when I last checked, there were not many tickets remaining unsold. The festival takes place on the 28th of February next year, and for all information, including ticket sales and how to submit your film to the festival, yes, it's actually not too late, but don't delay, go to www.advmotofilmfest.com. You'll find the link in the show notes. A couple of quick reminders. You can find the Real Riders podcast on Instagram, where I post, amongst other things, trailers for each new episode. And if you want to know what I've been watching recently, I occasionally post about that on Bluesky. Links for both the Instagram and Bluesky accounts can be found in the show notes. Finally, if you want to help me keep the servers running, pumping out the episodes, you can now support the podcast via Buy Me a Coffee donations. The link is in the show notes and also in my Linktree, which you can find in my Instagram, Bluesky, and YouTube account profiles. Righto, let's get to my talk with Bruce. Welcome to the podcast, Bruce. How are you today?
I'm great, Simon. Thanks very much for the invite, man. It's great to chat to you.
Absolutely no problem at all. Look, I feel your story's been well documented elsewhere, not the least being via your own YouTube channel and podcast. And so I want to try and avoid repeating that kind of interview. However, if I was to ask you to give me an elevator pitch or a 60-second summary of your life to date, would you be able to do that in case, there's someone out there not familiar with the whole TeapotOne story?
I'll do my very best.
Clock's running, by the way.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I've got verbal diarrhea always, so it'll probably be about 20 minutes. Right, Bruce Smart, Scottish lad, lives in London, moved to London to join the old Bill. At the age of 32, my mum passed away from cancer, and before she died, she basically made me promise that I would live out my sort of dream to pass my motorbike test, but more importantly, to travel. I'd always spoke about it. I'd never done it. So I promised her. 5 days later, she passed away. Long and short of it, I passed my bike tests, got myself a GSX-R 1000, and in 2012, I set off to ride around the world and got home in 2014, having ridden 74,000 miles through 54 countries in 442 days. That was a trip I called TeapotOne. Never thought it would go anywhere. Literally, it was just to document it for friends and family. Most importantly, my son, really. Just to show him that, set your mind on something and you can do it. You can achieve it. And fast forward to today, I resigned from the old Bill 5 years ago. And this is now full-time. I do TeapotOne and I've got a touring company called Chicken Strips.
I was checking something over the weekend when I was doing my intensive research, and I noticed that actually one of the first videos you put up was talking about the routes that you were thinking about doing for the round the world trip.
Yeah.
It changed quite a bit. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I understand that you were planning the trip for like 2 years or 18 months. Is that right?
It's about 3 years. Yeah. My mum passed away in 2008, and it was sort of 2009 when I'd always thought I would do it when I retired, because like everybody, I had a job, I had a house, a flat, you've got financial commitments and personal commitments. And I thought I'll do it when I retire. Something happened at work where a guy ended up pulling a gun on me actually and pulling the trigger, and it went click. So it kind of has an effect on you, really. I was out for a curry, I think, that night or a couple of nights later with some mates, all from the old Bill. And I told them about this promise I'd made my mum and my dream of travelling. And one of them literally almost slapped me in the face. You know, he just looked at me and he was like, "Are you an idiot?" She said, "That's your mum. That's a sign from your mum saying, get off your arse and make this happen, because you just don't know what's around the corner in life." And so it was sort of 2009-ish that I decided I was going to do it. Because I was in the old Bill in London, we had the Olympics coming in 2012. So I thought, there's no way I'm going to get like a career break and unpaid leave until after the Olympics. So that sort of set it that it had to be after the Olympics. And my mum's birthday was 1st of October. So it's just like, right, 1st of October, 2012, I'm going. You don't need that length of time, you know. If I made the decision to go again now, I would literally pick my phone up, my passport, credit card, go. That would be it. I would hit the road and deal with everything on the way.
I'm assuming that you don't have any regrets. You know, you've done this. Do you have a fear of regret, though? Do you fear that you might be sitting sometime in the future regretting that you didn't do something?
Wow, that is a good question. Yeah, I think I do. I don't regret anything I've done, but certainly with the world trip, there's parts of that trip that I look back on and go, oh, why didn't you spend longer here, or why didn't you go there? And I remember at the time making crazy decisions and just thinking, I remember being in like Lima in Peru and just thinking, oh, well, there's Machu Picchu, literally a matter of a day away, day's ride sort of thing. And I remember thinking, well, my tires are a wee bit thin on rubber. I tell you what, I'll just keep going. I can come back and do this. Well, now what's happened? You can't get to Machu Picchu anymore, can you? And life moves on, doesn't it? And I made so many decisions like that where I thought, I can come back and do this. And you just think, that's idiocy. Why didn't you just embrace it and go for it at the time? But I was like hell-bent. I had schedules I was wanting to hit. And yeah, I would love to go back and take longer for sure.
The travel that you do now, I mean, obviously you do a lot of travel for work with the touring company.
Yeah.
Do you do much travel now, personal travel? And what's the nature of that travel? Do you tend to go somewhere and explore, or does it also follow kind of a road trip structure?
To be honest with you, I get very little time away from TeapotOne or chicken strips now. I mean, next year we're doing our first international tour. So rather than the tours starting in April, mid to late April, and running till mid-October, we're now starting in mid-February. And that seems to have gone very well. It sold out very quickly, and it's already started us thinking, okay, well, Southern Hemisphere for the winter, Northern Hemisphere. But before you know it, you're in what was a potentially 6-7 month work period. You're now pushing it to the 12, and you have to be very self-disciplined when you work for yourself, when you're self-employed. You need to have your own time. My wife and I have hardly done anything for the last 5 years, and she's been fantastic about that. But, we realized this year, right, we need to make time for us here, away from all of this. And it is hard, because this is what helps pay my mortgage. So, you have to do what you do, don't you, to keep the coffers coming in. But yeah, I definitely have noticed there's not much me time or me and the wife time anymore. But to be honest, even if I was just going away on a ride myself, I would still do the same thing. I love filming. I love chatting bollocks to the camera. I enjoy doing that.
Okay, so that kind of leads into the next question, which was, I was looking at the website of Chicken Strips, the motorcycle touring company that you run together with journalist and author Simon Ware.
Yep.
And I noted that you've basically finished all your tours for this year, and the next one is that one in Australia. And when you call it international, do you mean that you're not setting out from the UK to get there? Or you're basically flying there? Is that what you mean by international?
Yeah. Our tours have always been based around Europe.
Okay.
The ones we've done chicken strips. So it's our first one outside of Europe, basically.
Okay. And just before I forget, who are the people coming on that trip? Are they people based in Australia, or are people from the UK or other places flying in as well?
The vast majority are UK based, but there are a couple from Australia who are going to come and join us along the way. And then there's other people that, people I met on the world trip and people that follow the channel who are just going to meet us along the way and, for a beer in the evening, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So coming back to this sort of downtime theoretically over the Northern Hemisphere of winter, do you then find that you focus a lot more on content creation? And is it quite a productive period over winter? Or is it more like a catch-up with all the footage that maybe you've shot during tours over the Northern Hemisphere summer?
Yeah, it has been a catch-up period. I'm notorious for having a massive, ever-increasing backlog of content. I've got stuff going back till 2021 that hasn't been edited. So there's a huge amount still that has to be edited. I've just taken the leap and taken on a proper editor. Well, he's going to be my third editor, actually, that I've tried this year. He is an editor by trade, so he is currently tackling his first attempt at one of the tours at the moment. And, I appreciate the workload that's involved. It's got to be really hard for an editor to come in and face, 600 to 800 gigabytes of footage from multiple camera sources across multiple days. I structure everything in my file structure, day 1, day 2, and what cameras are and everything like that. But you're still faced with this huge amount of content. And all you can do is lay that on the timeline, sync it all up. But then you've got to go through it, haven't you? And identify all the points. At least for me, I can see a bit of footage and go, I remember that day, this happened, that happened. This bloke's a really good character. Somebody got a puncture here. You can remember bits, which can help speed up what story you're going to tell. But when you have no connection to that, I don't envy the bloke because it's going to be tough. It's going to take a lot of time. So we'll see how that works.
What's been the hardest part about that? Is it concerns that new editor will not get the tone right? Because you have a distinct tone, clearly, and it's a tone that your audience is attracted to, that they keep coming back for. That's the tone they want to get in terms of your sense of humor, et cetera, or is it a concern maybe that how much engagement you'll have with him as he goes through the work? Because I guess it's your baby. The temptation to micromanage is enormous, I would imagine. I know just because of what you've said on other podcasts in the past, this is a big step for you to let go. Yeah. I mean, you're not letting go completely, but you're sort of putting that work in the hands and the trust in the hands of the trust with someone else to do this, right?
Definitely. There's lots of points there that are concern's probably too strong a word for me, but it's a point in my mind for sure. One thing I've really realized is that I am a control freak. It sounds so self-absorbed. I don't mean it to, but in my head, I'm just like, all right, I can do that better. I'll just do that. Okay, I can do that, but I'll just do that. And you just can't be like that, can you? Especially when you're self-employed, because you end up in the position I'm in where you're literally cleaning the office as well as running the office, doing the admin, paying the bills, and then actually running the business side of things as well. You just can't do it. So it's been really tough to just accept the fact that I need help and to go out and ask for that help. But this guy that we've taken on, he seems a really good character. He seems a really good lad. He's fun. He's from the industry, the bike industry itself. But then you have the other concerns in that, when you're out riding a motorcycle, the cameras, they're not always running, but when they're running, they capture everything. And mine are all linked to capture all comms communication. So people say things, when you have people from our generations, political correctness perhaps isn't on their on their top of their priority list. They just say stuff when they're out, and that is a concern. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus because of my content, from what they've said, speeds that they're riding, overtakes that they might have taken. So all of that is a big concern, and I can monitor that when I'm editing to make sure that, I'm fair to everyone that's involved. When someone else is doing that, you're relinquishing that footage to them, and even if it doesn't make the edit, thankfully, that footage is still with them, and there's a lot of trust involved there. So, we're working through these at the moment.
Yeah. And so this guy, I'm a little bit interested in this. So this guy, he rides bikes as well.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I was thinking about that the other day. I was watching the most recent video that you put up, the one from November, Gran Canaria.
Oh, the Canaries one, yeah.
And you were on quite a tight road, and you've got that barrier right next to you on the right-hand side, and it's spectacular. And you went into a corner, and I could see you before you went into the corner going, oh, you've picked the wrong line on that. And even you said, oh, should I sort of buggered that one up a little bit. And I was just wondering if someone who hadn't ridden, didn't know riding, whether they would include that kind of thing or not, whether they would know enough about riding to go, maybe I should cut this out because it doesn't make Bruce look so good, or whether, just not even be aware of that kind of thing. And that's why I asked this question about where this guy, does he actually ride? Yeah.
My belief in everything I do is it's something I was taught very early on in life. Integrity is non-negotiable. If someone thinks you're full of BS, you've lost everything then, because your word means nothing. Your actions and your words mean nothing if people think you're fake. So I very much take the point of view, you get me, warts and all. I put my foot in my mouth. I swear occasionally. I have some pretty firm views about things at times. But again, I'm open to changing them if I think I'm wrong. But I will document what happens, So if I screw a corner up or make a dodgy overtake, I'm going to include it, because that's just riding a bike. There's nobody out there that gets it 100% right all the time. We all cock things up. And I think it is important for people to realise everyone does that. Not everyone's, especially on social media these days. Social media is just so fake and full of BS these days. I think it's important to be just real. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually liked the fact you drew attention to that. You said, I stuffed that one up. And I kind of like the fact that you didn't try and gloss over it, or that you didn't cut it out. I thought, actually, that was kind of, if you're a new rider, because I think a lot of people who maybe are new riders, they're so enthusiastic about riding. They're soaking up everything they get off YouTube. So if they're watching someone who's experienced like you riding along, and you say, oh, yeah, I didn't quite get that right, that will maybe reinforce for them the way it did for me. It's like, oh, I think that's not right. Oh, that's not right. And then Bruce says, oh, I stuffed that up. And it kind of reinforces like, oh, yeah, my judgment about that situation was also correct, because Bruce has said, I didn't get that quite right. Yeah. And I thought that was actually quite useful. And absolutely, it reinforces that integrity message that you just explained.
Cheers. We're always learning in life, aren't we? Like I always say it, every day is a school day. So like I said before, I have views about certain things, but I'm open to changing them as you learn about stuff. And riding a bike's exactly the same, isn't it? I was taught to drive through the old bill. I've done the police biking courses, but that doesn't mean to say you're the dog's danglies. There's plenty of people I know at a very, very high level within the old bill for riding bikes, way, way higher than I ever achieved. I go out for rides with them and they cut corners up as well. It's just, it's life. It's part of life.
Yeah. And I think it's actually, that's when the danger happens, when you think, oh, I can't be taught anything else. And actually that's very much also with this content creation. I think you've got to be constantly sort of challenging yourself, how you're doing things, and am I doing as well as I could be in terms of my preparation and my performance, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So I think there are parallels all over the place. Earlier this year, I think it was around the 3rd of July, you released a short video on the channel expressing your frustration with various things related to the channel and your intention to have a reset.
Yeah.
What were some of the frustrations at the forefront of your mind when you made that video?
God, also mainly this massive backlog of content that I've got, and I've never been tested, but I have this brain that works chronologically. So in my head, it's like, well, I've got all this backlog of footage, and I've got some stuff going back to say 2021, and in my head, I'm like, well, I need to go back and do the 2021 and work my way through to get to. But that's just not how things work, because there's, maybe there might be a tour that we still need to sell 4 or 5 places on. We just did that tour like 6 months ago. So it would make sense to edit that tour and get it out there as a marketing vehicle for that tour, wouldn't it? And then there's all these other things that I've basically spent the last couple of years pretty much only doing tour content. You get bored of it. You need variety, don't you? Variety is the spice of life and stuff. So there was all these in my head. I'm like, I really want to, I want to do some camera reviews. I would love to do some editing tutorial content. I'd love to work more on my drone piloting, so I can improve the technique and my filming prowess when we're away on the tours. There's loads of other stuff that I wanted to do, but I felt like I couldn't concentrate on anything other than that backlog of content. And it was just like, I just felt like I was drowning. And I think you get burnt out as well. I was definitely getting burnt out, for sure.
For sure, I can completely understand that. And what you say about working through things chronologically, yeah, I think I would have to put my hand up and say, yeah. Is there another way to do it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. Was there any subscriber feedback, or could you see anything in the YouTube analytics that was sort of reinforcing these messages as well?
That's two-part for me. The analytics, 100%, over the last 2024 it started, I noticed. Around about Easter time in 2024, the algorithm changed on YouTube and views just plummeted. I mean, I posted one video and I think it got the usual 25, 30 odd thousand views, which happy days, beautiful. You kind of get a bit complacent because for a period, you're continually getting the same sort of views. And then all of a sudden that dropped to like 3,000, 4,000. And you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And it just seemed to plateau like that. And the subscribers went from 1,000, 2,000 a month to 10, 20. And you're like, what is going on here? So I never want to get caught up in the numbers, but of course you do, because it is a measure of the quality of your work to an extent. If people aren't watching it, there's a reason. What's going on? So the algorithm definitely changed. And I think people just, their viewing tastes and preferences maybe changed. I think there was so much similar content arriving on YouTube, certainly from like when the pandemic hit. All of a sudden people have got all this time, so people just went on YouTube, didn't they? I can make thousands, I'll do it. So it got flooded, and I think there's just so much similar stuff out there that people have like just a multitude of content to watch on loads of different platforms, including streaming on TV now. We never had that, did we, growing up? You had 3-4 channels and that was it.
Well, if you were lucky, where I came from, there was one channel, and when the second channel came, we were pretty excited, I can tell you.
Yeah. Do you remember it used to switch off at night? Like the TV would stop at night and that was it till the morning.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a major event, because coming from New Zealand, whenever we used to see all the All Blacks tests live. Oh, wow. Which was a big deal. And bizarrely, we would see the FA Cup final. And that was...
Really?
Yeah. So that was sort of the highlight of because it was sort of early May or something, I think, or sometime in May was the FA Cup final. I remember that. We always used to get up at night. You set clocks and you get up at 1 or 2 in the morning to watch the football. Yeah. It was, and then of course, like I said, the All Blacks tests as well. You had to watch those. I mean,
So I think now, like, everyone is so used to just being able to click a button, whether that's on your remote on the TV or on a computer or on your phone, whatever it is, and watch what you want to watch when you want to watch it. There's just so much choice. I think that definitely affected views and things like that on YouTube. I said it was two-part because the feedback I get from, I hate using this term, but my community, the group of people that regularly engage with the channel and things like that, and I have my Patreon as well, the clan on there. The feedback I was getting from them was that, they started following the channel predominantly for that trip content. So for them, it's like, no, keep it coming. I want to see more of it. But the trip content these days doesn't really entice in a new audience, or certainly a mass new audience, you need to be the bike, the latest bike reviews and the latest cameras, all that sort of stuff. That's where you get a lot more new subscribers.
So how's your relationship with YouTube these days? I mean, I think if I'm right, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not something you can make a living from. That the YouTube is not something you can make a living from at the moment.
No, God, no. I mean, the reason I'm so grateful for the following I've got on Patreon is because they're the ones that put food on my table and keep a roof over my head. That in the tour business, that's where I make my money. I've never hidden the fact with YouTube. On a good month, I'm sort of £600-700 a month. I'm not making the thousands. I think I made £1,000 one month, I think, ever in however long, 15 odd years I've been doing this.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the last year it's been like £300, £350. So it doesn't even cover the fuel bill when we're away on tours. So
yeah. Your mate, the Missenden Flyer, which is another YouTube channel that people don't know, but I think they probably will. I remember he put out a video 1-2 years ago, and I was so grateful because he said, you know what, I'm going to do some numbers for you people. This is how much time I put into doing this, and this is how much money I make. And I'm not even making minimum wage. I love what I'm doing, but I'm not even making minimum wage in the UK.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who thinks they should be approaching YouTube as a money-making spectacle, they need to watch that video first of all. And then they have to decide really what they want to do in life, I think. If you enjoy doing it, if you love making videos, go for it. If you're looking to make money, there are so many other things that you can probably do that are going to be much easier. That's sort of been my conclusion.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you want to do this, if you want to be a content creator full time, you cannot rely on one thing. You've got to have multiple income streams. So, you need to build your brand, whatever that is. So you're going to have income coming in from the content you're putting out on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Once you have a following on that, then you might be approached to do brand deals and sponsored content and things like that. That's a choice you need to make. You can make good money on that. But again, personally, I don't want to be a billboard. I'll do the occasional one if I think it fits with my audience. Then you've got things like merch, you've got things like Patreon, you've got things like, for me, I do I'm a guest speaker occasionally at events and things like that. So you just have to try and have an income from lots of different places, because you can't rely on any one platform to pave the way for you, for sure.
Yeah. So assessing things now, basically about 5 months later, how do you feel the reset has gone?
I think looking at it from an outside perspective, I don't think anyone will notice much difference, to be honest. But for me personally, it's a massive weight off my shoulders at the moment. I am still conscious that, Rich, this editor chap, he's not produced that first vid yet. So for me, it's very much a trial, because I want to make sure, A, he produces the content that I'm happy with, and B, he's happy with the workflow, and the workload that is coming his way. So it's certainly not set in stone yet, but it's a big relief for me, just in that, well, possibly that's that noose from around my neck, that's gone, passed to somebody else, and I can concentrate on just new content, really, For the tours, I'm sort of set in my ways with how I film the tours, and you're kind of set in your ways, really, how you can film the tours. But there's other things I would like to try, and with that weight lifted off, I personally, I just feel more inclined to try new things now, because I don't feel like I'm being pulled underwater by this weight of past content. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay, look, Bruce, I have a confession to make. I haven't watched all your YouTube videos.
What?
Okay, so I do try to do extensive research on my guests, but there are now 680 videos on your channel. The first one appeared on the 20th of November, 2010. That's the one you discussed your initial route planning for the round the world ride.
Oh, yeah, the wall plan, yeah.
The latest one, as I mentioned, was from Gran Canaria, the November last year, the Chicken Strips tour.
Yeah.
This is a substantial body of work. It's very impressive. But how did you get into this? How did you discover that you enjoyed making films?
Sheesh. I mean, I used to film our rides with my mates before I even thought about doing this world trip. I had a channel it was called Smart Tours. My surname's Smart. So all my mates, I just fell into organising and leading when we went on tours abroad and stuff. So they were just like, oh, we're off on Smart Tours. Where are we going next? So I just created a channel called Smart Tours. But that was filmed on literally cheese. You said there about the 2010 whatnot. That is like HD compared to what we had 4 years before then. I was using like the original dash cams. Remember those pencil cameras?
Yeah.
Which looked like you were going through fog most of the time. So I would just film stuff from that. And I had no knowledge of editing, so it's just one long vid, with very little cuts in it. Music, I just used the music that I liked, so everything was just copyright struck, and half the time the vids didn't last. They were just taken down for copyright infringement. So I started on that, and then when I decided I was going to do the world trip, especially considering I had 3 years to plan, I didn't look into editing in any shape or form, or how do you film? What do you film with? How do you edit? What do you edit with? I did the Austin Vince filmmaker school. I went across to see him for a day on his canal boat, and he taught me, sequence, transition, all things like that. But again, that's very much how Austin likes to film. I know there's basics in that, but it seemed to be very tailored to creating the content he liked, and I like the fast pace. I like the jump cuts. People I follow on social media, I love the jump cut style and the vlog style. So that's the sort of content I wanted to create. So I found myself on the actual world tour at the Nürburgring one night, sat in my hotel room, and I suddenly thought, I better figure out how I actually put this on YouTube. So I just started Googling, and I have a Mac, so I ended up on Final Cut, and over the years, I've just taught myself as I went. Hopefully, it's got better.
Well, I'm sure. I can I can confirm it has. having had a good sample of the videos that are there, you often tell your audience that you're quite slow and that you're stubborn in terms of changing how you do things. And you sort of touched on this a little bit before. But do you actually take pleasure in crafting something slowly?
Yeah, probably too much. I'm a perfectionist in my head. I'm very aware that technically my content isn't, it's not high quality. It's not how, like I would say, industry editors would produce content. But in my head, I can focus right on, like, I need to cut a frame out there. There's just something in your head goes, nah, it needs to be cut earlier, or it needs to be cut later, or that needs a J cut, or that needs an L cut, whatever it is, it's just, there's something. But you can get so focused on that it's never finished. Nothing's ever good enough to put out. But at some point, you just have to make that decision. This is good enough. Get it out. It's never going to be good enough for me, but it's got to go out. You just have to get it out. So I used to spend, I could spend 5 to 7 days working like 18-hour days to produce some crappy 20-minute, 25-minute YouTube vid, which most people wouldn't even click on. But, in my head, it's like, I appreciate the work that's gone into that. And occasionally you would get a little message from somebody to go, I edit, I really like what you did at this point here. And you're just like, someone's noticed. Doesn't happen very often anymore, because I've definitely reined all that in. And, Andy TMF was saying to me, so I don't know why you spend all that time on editing, because most people won't notice it. And anyway, just get it done and get it out. He very much, you wouldn't mind me saying, he has a very basic sort of editing process with him. Generally, it's one camera, possibly two. He doesn't really do many jump cuts. So he can churn through his edits quite quick. And that works for him. But I like a bit more chaos there. I like the jump cuts and montages and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And do you feel that your editing pace, and I don't mean the action of editing, but I mean are your cuts becoming much shorter? The sequence is getting more kinetic, chaotic, or do you feel that your editing pace, and I don't mean the action of editing, but I mean the sequence is getting more kinetic, chaotic, or 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 the or has that not changed really from day one?
It has changed. I think again, listening to feedback from people, I think at one stage it was like almost staccato-esque. People were just like, God, you're going to have an epileptic fit looking at this because it's changing so much. So yeah, you take that on board and try and lengthen the cuts, string them out a wee bit more. This last series, you're talking about the Canaries one, there's some of the longest sequences of single one shot that I've done in a long time. And I think that's purely because the roads are impressive. The bike that I'm on, the Africa Twin, it's got a lovely roaring engine to it. And the scenery's absolutely stunning in places. So it's like, well, people are watching because they ride bikes and they want to experience riding that bike. Let's let them enjoy this bit. If I was to cut, it's gonna remove something. It's gonna take something away from that shot. Let the shot flow.
Yeah. I noticed that there was some unusually long sequences, but I agree what was on screen sort of warranted it. The road was interesting, the scenery was interesting, and that bike does sound good actually. It comes across well. How are you miking up that? Is that just coming through your
the helmet mic?
I mean, are you on DJI or are you on GoPro? I can't remember.
I was a GoPro man up until about 2 years ago, and Insta360 actually approached me with their new Ace Pro, and could you trial that? So I tried the Ace Pro, and then about 5 months later they brought out the Ace Pro 2. So I've been with the Ace Pro 2 pretty much until about August time. Was it this year? I think it was August time this year when I bought the Action 5. Well, I bought the DJI Action 4. Tried that, wasn't that impressed with it. Bought the Action 5 when it came out. And what I do now is I have the Action 5 as the cockpit cam looking back at me and a wireless mic recording audio on that.
Okay.
And then I have the Ace Pro 2 as my helmet cam. Yep. And I have a lav mic wired into that with my comms. I have a wiring system in my helmet that takes the comms audio from my Cardo, my lav mic audio, it feeds that into a stereo input, and then that stereo input goes into the camera. So I've got the comms on one channel, my audio on another channel, and it just means I can, I can tweak those two different audios separately, normalize things. And that's the way. And then I've got the backup of my audio on the DJI if anything goes wrong, which it can do.
Okay, so that sort of actually answers two questions. A, how are you capturing the group ride, and that's how you're doing it. But you don't also have any other microphones for the exhaust of the bike or anything. You're getting enough capture through the other microphones.
Yeah. I've done that in the past. I've used like an auxiliary sound recorder. If you're doing a bike review, for example, sometimes that helps, on a nice day, if you can have a sound recorder somewhere and get that engine note, particularly if you just mount it at the side of the road, and then just drive by. That can work really well. But it's all time, isn't it? And I think if people have never done this before, they don't appreciate how much time all that takes.
Yeah. And this is something I talk about often on the podcast. When you're on a tour, especially with paying guests, they're not going to tolerate you mucking around to try and get the sound right? They just want to ride. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. It's very much what I was saying to you. Like, there's only really a certain way I can film these tours because of that. People are there to have a holiday. They're not there for you to film. So, I follow people like Adam Ryman, for example. Everyone loves the stuff. What he produces is just absolutely beautiful content. But I appreciate how much time that's taken to do everything that he's doing. And I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah, exactly. Until you try it yourself and then you go, oh, this is quite serious.
Yeah.
If you were to meet someone who had no experience of YouTube, good luck with that, how would you describe motovlogging to them?
Wow. Motovlogging. Someone riding a motorbike, filming their point of view with a microphone as they vent whatever's on their mind. Waffle, talk, bollocks, whatever it is.
For the audience, what do you think is the appeal of that? Because it's clearly quite popular, or very popular, in fact.
Yeah, God, I'm trying to think what drew me to it. I mean, it was Baron von Grumble that really drew me to it. back in the day. I think Chris he was one of the few British moto vloggers that I knew about at the time, say back 2007, 2008. And it was just, I felt some sort of affinity to it, because I commuted every single day in and out of London on my bike. And I saw exactly what he was seeing. When he's people pulling out in front of you, I'd have the conversations that he was having on camera. I'd have them in my own head. And I think it's maybe part of the reason podcasts do so well is that, we talk about things that normal people are talking about, don't we? Like just in conversation. It's just a conversation, but it's motovlogging's one-sided. It's just one person chatting away.
So when I grew up, radio played a much bigger role, and I would say a much bigger role in people's everyday lives than it does now. And given that the human voice is arguably at the center of vlogging, I was wondering if there are parallels between today's YouTube vloggers and radio hosts from an earlier era. And when I talk about an earlier era, I'm not talking about the 30s. I'm talking about like when I was growing up in the 80s, the late 70s, 80s, that time.
Yeah, I'd never thought about that. Yeah, I think there's something in that for sure. Yeah.
Because I'm thinking particularly of commercial radio, which is a little bit more loose and a bit more personality driven compared to, say, I don't know, what BBC Radio 4, whatever the more serious channels are. You almost had that parasocial relationship with the radio host that you have now with vloggers or content creators, podcasters, I guess, as well.
Yeah, you're spot on there, actually. I'd never thought of it that way, but that's very true. And character, I think, is key. So whatever your character is, just be you, just be yourself, and you'll attract your tribe, your community. The people that like what they hear and they see, they're the ones that are going to become your community. Don't try and be something you're not, because it just comes across as fake. So, just be you.
It's fake and it's exhausting trying to be someone else.
Oh, aye, yeah. Yeah. You can't be yes forever, can you? At some point that mask will slip. So just be warts and all, and that's that.
Yeah. It's that thing about it's so easier not to lie. If you start lying, you've got to. Well, you must have known this from your time in the police. I heard once, Guy. I hope I haven't told this on the podcast, but I heard once that the Israeli security forces have got this very subtle thing at the airport when they're trying to detect whether people are going to do shit on their airplanes, and they basically interview multiple times, asking you to tell your story of what you've done the previous week or in that day.
Yep.
And to get people to tell something backwards is much harder consistently than to if you're not telling the truth.
Yeah.
If you are telling the truth, you can go forwards and backwards. You can tell it's just easy for you. If you're having to construct something in your mind that's fake and then telling it forwards and back, that's when they catch them out about it.
And I'll tell you what, the Israeli security are very good at that sort of stuff. The interviewing techniques and things like that, they are class at. Very good. Yeah. Whatever your political beliefs, they know what they're doing with that stuff.
Yeah. One of the themes I like to return to on the podcast is the way that technology and the internet has lowered barriers for people to create stuff and to find an audience, basically distribution. In the past, there were a lot of barriers to things like, getting into broadcasting or music recording or filmmaking. But obviously these days you can self-publish on the platform of your choice, like YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. Most of us see that as a good thing. And we want it to stay. But it also means there's a lot of content out there, and it's perhaps challenging to find your audience if you are a creator. What have you found has been most effective in finding, building, I guess, retaining your audience as well?
Sheesh. That's a difficult one because, I think it's never been harder than it is now to be distinctive from anyone else. It is really hard now, like, give you an example. I'll put a vid out now, and whereas we used to get 20, 30, 40, 50,000 views, if it gets 10,000, 15,000, you're like, yeah, you're celebrating it. It's hard these days, really hard. How do you stand out from everyone else? I think these days you can't just rely on a clickbaity thumbnail, a catchy title, your tags, and just publish it out on YouTube. You can't do that. You have to create sort of a marketing strategy based around your content there on YouTube or wherever it is you want to bring people, whether that's to your website or you want to bring them to your channel, whatever it is. You've got to chuck the tentacles out, and by that I mean things like various different social media. You can't just use one. But I suppose there's always the oddballs out there that have one platform, Instagram or Facebook. That's all they use. But I think these days you've got to cast your net out on all these different platforms. You've got to do a multitude of different content on those platforms, whether it's just an image post, a short, a reel, video, whatever it is. You've just got to get the content out there to try and maximize the eyeballs that see. And if they like what they see, hopefully they'll go, who's this Real Riders bloke? Is he on YouTube? Let's have a look. Or, all right, he's a podcast. Where is he? I'll have a listen to these podcasts. That's kind of how I see it. But, I'm by no means the Dalai Lama on this, because I'm struggling just like everyone else is struggling. So yeah, it's tough at the moment, really tough.
And it's exhausting because you're doing all that work to either find guests, if you're talking about the podcast, or bikes to review. I'm sure there's a lot of backwards and forwards when you're making arrangements to find bikes or equipment to review. Even if people are offering stuff, there's a lot of admin related to that. Yeah, I honestly, I don't envy you. I mean, I work part-time as a podcast producer, so I'm sort of kind of in the industry, but then I do this on the side. So I don't have the pressure to try and make a living out of this particular podcast. Yeah. But even this particular podcast is almost like a full, believe it or not, people, I know I haven't produced that many episodes recently, but it does feel like a full-time activity. Oh, yeah. It's not this part. This is the fun part, getting to talk to someone.
This is the easy bit, isn't it? Yeah, just chatting away.
It is the easy part.
Yeah.
It's everything else. And to do it consistently so that people appreciate and see the quality of what you're doing is, people, you should be bloody thankful, really.
But with a podcast, it's like, I always like to have like a month buffer with my guests. So I'll have a month worth of guests that are all planned in and lined up, ready to go. And then it's just like a rolling wheel from then on. So you work out the next month and then the next month and work your way through. But all you need is for a couple of people to pull out, like last minute. And then you're like, oh, and then before you know it, that buffer goes. And then you're like, Christ, who am I gonna bring in next week? And
yeah. I was doing very well up until recently. I was getting an episode out every 2 weeks. And then I, just for various reasons, which I think I have talked about on the podcast, but basically I had a bit of a break at the end of summer. And I'm trying to get them out every 2 weeks now, but I'm not beating myself up about it because, I have a very niche audience. I know that. I appreciate that. I've got other things going on. I think people generally appreciate when they come out, but I'm not trying to make a living out of this, and I'm not giving myself a heart attack if I can't get them out every 2 weeks. It's just
you got to enjoy it, haven't you?
I think that's a very good point, because at the point that it stops being enjoyable, you really start to question, why am I doing this then? If I'm
And I don't think when you're not enjoying it, you're not producing your optimum content.
Exactly. 100%. You have been on YouTube for a while now. Apologies if I keep banging on about how long you've been on YouTube.
Is he ever going to go away?
What have been the technological developments that have had the biggest impact on the content creation?
Oh, for me, in my world, it's the cameras. I had the first GoPro. I took the GoPro 1, the Hero, on the world trip. And it was horrendous. It was just so unreliable. The resolution was like cheese. It was terrible. And to be honest, the GoPros didn't really work until, was it the 5? I think I bought the 5 and that started to be a bit more reliable. And I think it had HD. I think that went to 1080 or something. It was like, oh, wow. Fast forward to what we've got now. These cameras now, they're filming in 4K. Well, some are doing 8K. You can do 4K at 120 frames per second if you want. They film in high dynamic range. So, the days of as a moto vlogger, you're going out there and if there's bright sunshine, it would just blow the sky out. Nowadays, you can see definition, you can see clouds, you can pause it. I'll film it 60 frames per second. You can be riding along at 60 miles an hour, officer, pause, and there's still, generally, there can be enough detail there that you can do a screenshot, say, I don't know, an eagle flew over or something like that. A deer ran out in front of you. You can freeze frame it and still have enough definition to go, that's a deer, something like that. So that has become so much easier. Audio is so much easier than it used to be. The advent of drones are just, although a bit contentious now because sometimes you can fly them, sometimes you can't fly them. But when you can't fly them, the footage you can get with drones, particularly for like travel type content, it's just amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Do you have any sense of what might be around the corner in terms of technological developments? Like, I wonder, are we pushing up to the limits? Like 4K is impressive. As you mentioned 8K, is anyone going to notice what 16K looks like?
I mean, there's still people out there filming in 1080 chucking it out on YouTube. So I'll film at 4K just because I can see in my analytics that I think over half the people now watch my stuff on the TV. So, for me, it's like, well, get that out in 4K. It's just it does look better on the big TVs.
Yeah.
8K, I probably regret saying it, but I don't really see the point in 8K personally for what I do for moto vlogging. Watch this next year, it'll all be 8K, but I don't really see the need to move to that. What I see on the horizon that really interests me is AI, because of the shots that allows you to generate, particularly for things like, let's say I was doing a camera review. Say you wanted to do like a bullet time bit of footage. So you've got your camera there and then you want a sequence where it swirls round like that.
Yep.
AI can generate that now. You just give it a picture of the object and ask it to do a bullet time, a 10-second bullet time video of it, and it creates it, and it's really good now. So I'm interested to see how AI can maybe I can incorporate that into, say, product reviews a bit. And then there's a new drone coming out next year that I'm very interested in seeing. The anti-gravity one. Have you seen that? The Insta360 one?
I've heard about it, but I know nothing about it.
That, to me, looks incredible in that it's effectively a 360 camera on a drone. And in terms of my world, moto vlogging and touring, when I'm flying the drone, you obviously have to be very aware of what is around you. So I can't always be focused on, have the camera pointing at the bikes, because it's not looking at to where the drone's going. So unless I can see where the drone is, I kind of have to be behind and follow. With this new 360 drone, you wear goggles with it, like an FPV type of drone. So with the goggles, you're watching where you're going, the directions that you're flying, but there's a little subscreen within the goggles that shows you the camera viewpoint. So that would allow you to get these amazing shots where you could swerve all around the convoy of bikes, but you're still looking where you're going. So that's a kind of game changer, I think, for my world. So I'm very interested to see how that can be used.
And that's coming out next year, you say?
They say early 26. We'll see. And it depends on what the price is. If it's daft money.
Of course. Interesting that you mentioned AI, because I wanted to also ask, are you using AI already in your content creation workflow? Maybe not in terms of generating images or sounds, but just as an example, I use AI to help me go through transcripts of the podcast so I can pull out quotes very quickly. And so it speeds up my work considerably in that way. It doesn't create anything. It just helps me find things.
Yeah.
Are you doing anything like that to help with your workflow?
I used it more for the podcast. I would use Opus clips. So once the podcast is finished, you give the YouTube link to Opus clips. There's loads of them out there that do it now. And it analyzes it, and it will then produce, say, 40 shorts, like little clips that it thinks have the potential to go viral or get maximum views or just interesting topics. I don't think the quality of the footage that it produces, because it'll just take what it's seen. So, the way I have it set up on YouTube from a podcast is the background image with two landscape camera views. So the way it formats that isn't great. But what I'll do is I'll look and see what they've created and then go back into my original footage and then regenerate it through that. And then that's how it's a lot quicker than just sitting and going through 3 hours of a podcast and going, oh, I think that bit will be good. That bit will be good.
Exactly. It's that time saver.
Yeah.
Originally, I got my wife to help me because she's a bit of a prompt specialist in terms of ChatGPT. And I got her to help me. And the first prompt she made, which was going through these transcripts, was great. And then I started to notice that the answers didn't seem quite right. They seemed kind of right, but not quite right. And that's the problem with AI. It just starts if there's nothing there, it just starts making stuff
it lies
up.
to you, like a cheap watch. Yeah.
It's quite hilarious when you first see it. But now, with improving the prompt to say, no, you cannot make stuff up. You have to take a timestamp and an explicit.
Yeah.
So once we corrected that, it saves so much time just to find some quotes for the social media stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting to see because even in the last 6 months, AI has just come on exponentially. And it really does make me think, where is this going next year?
Yeah.
Like for the good and the bad. It's like, well, what are we going to be able to do with this next year? I would love it to be in a position where I could chuck a whole load of footage and just go, there you go, create me a video. But I know I'll never be happy with that. I'll always end up going back through it. But I think it's at the stage where for short form content, say videos of up to maybe 10 minutes, you can create like anyone not in the know, you create something called a compound clip, which is one clip made up of loads and loads and loads of other clips. You give that compound clip to some AI packages out there, and it can do the job of removing those ums and ahs and dead periods and analysing it to see what is the most engaging content.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. That's got potential.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to use it to support me at the moment. I'm resistant to go because I enjoy making things.
Yeah.
So I want to make things, and then I engage or I use it. I utilize it to help me with the promotion of those things that I've made. But I can also see that it can be very useful to actually generate content as well.
Yeah.
Actually generate final content for sure.
And I think with our specific types of content, with podcast, with motovlogging, it's a very personality-based bit of content. People feel an affinity to it because you're a human being like they are. You're a person. And I think if you were to lose that through AI generation, I think you might lose that appeal, possibly. Could be wrong. I don't know. But
Yeah. Talking about podcasting, so you're a podcaster, I'm a podcaster. I thought I might just indulge myself a little bit at the end here and ask you a few podcast-related questions. I think it's fair to say that you're a video-first podcaster. Do you have visibility of how the audience consumes the podcast? Like, sort of, what's the split between the video-watching audience and the audio-only audience?
Yeah, I mean, I use Buzzsprout for my audio side of stuff, and then obviously YouTube for the video. And initially, it was overwhelmingly audio-based. But I think that was probably because I would release it first on audio, and then 3 or 4 days later, I would release it on YouTube. So I think what happened was people listened to it as soon as it came out, and by the time it came out on YouTube, they were like, well, I've listened to it there. Once I went to publishing them both on a Wednesday at the same time, it very quickly went 50-50, and I think it's probably more YouTube-based than audio now. Actually, no, that's lies, actually, because the downloads are way higher on audio than they are on the views on YouTube.
One of the things that I remember you saying is that a lot of your listeners enjoyed the really long interviews that you were doing. I think famously there's like a 6-hour one there.
7.5 hours, Mossy.
Okay. There were several toilet stops, if I remember, along the way. And I think that maybe that goes a little bit back to what we were talking about earlier about the radio. Because you can imagine if you're a long-haul trucker or someone who's stuck next to a radio all day.
That's exactly it. Yep.
So rather than listen to maybe the radio DJ who kind of annoys you and is spewing out ads every 10 minutes. And I've heard the news 10 times today. I do not need to hear the news again. I mean, this is the beauty of podcasts, right?
Yep.
I can understand why those people enjoyed listening to those long episodes, because they are driving from one end of the country and they're on the road for 3 hours or 6 hours. Is that the kind of feedback that you've got?
100%. That is the feedback. I mean, I've had a break from the podcast since, was it June, July time? I think the last time I did a podcast. And it's those people, it's the lorry drivers, the mechanics, the plasterers, the painters, those people that just have headphones in or the radio on, whatever it is. It's those people that are like, where's the podcast? Give me the podcast.
Yeah.
And they like the long one because exactly as you said, they put it on and it chews up 3 hours of, whatever it is they're up to in that day.
Yeah.
So it works for some people. Some people don't like, some people have got the attention span of a gnat, don't they? But, anything more than 5 minutes, they can't deal with it. But
yeah. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but it's all audio for me because there's no way that I would sit down and just listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm doing other things. I'm either walking the dog or
Same.
exercising or something. That's what I love about podcasts or driving, right? And there's no way I want to be looking at a screen. But there definitely are people out there who do consume podcasts by looking at screens, which is interesting. I guess the final question just to ask about the podcast is, it's on hiatus at the moment. Can you give an update on its future? When's it going to reappear?
Again, it's that brain of mine kicking in, going, well, if I'm coming back on the podcast, we'll just do it in the new year, January sort of time. So in my head, it's like, right, January time. But I've got to line up guests. But I've really missed it. I mean, I don't know about you, but I find podcasting quite cathartic. It's like your own therapy, isn't it? It's like being able to just talk to somebody. There's nobody there, but you're just talking.
Yeah.
I just enjoy conversation and you can chat through things in your head. I miss doing that.
Well, you also do something that's very clever, which is you engage your audience by inviting them to generate questions for your guests. And I mean, you give preference to I think the Patreon supporters, which makes complete sense. But that seems to be a great way of engaging the audience. And how did you come up with that idea?
I think initially it was maybe a bit of fear on my part, thinking, geez, am I gonna be able to hold a conversation with this person for half an hour or an hour, whatever it is? So it was like, well, if I have people ask some questions, that's a fallback for me. And you know what it's like with conversation. You can judge sometimes. Sometimes conversation just flows, and you've got absolutely no problem chatting to somebody for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Other times, I'll always try and just freebase it initially and have that initial free conversation. And then, normally an hour and a half in, it's like, right, okay, well, let's go and tackle the questions. And that opens up a whole new avenue of conversation because it can be about absolutely everything and anything then.
Yeah. And your guests have been really generous about, I think all of them, at least from what I've heard on the podcast, have all said, oh, yep, whatever, we've got all the time you want, Bruce, just go for it. And so they did go on for 1, 2, 3, 7.5 hours. Yeah.
I always say to people, like, I need at least an hour of your time. There's no point in us doing this for anything less than an hour because I want to dig in here and I want to have a proper conversation. I have had some fairly famous people who've wanted to come on the podcast. And then when I've said to them, right, it'll be at least an hour, some go 2-3 hours. They're like, oh no, I can only give you 20 minutes. Or their agent has gone, I can only give you 15-20 minutes. I'm like, not interested. No, thanks. Not interested in that. There's just no point. I just don't see any point in that.
Well, it's not your show. People know that you do long form podcasts.
Yeah.
And I like what you said earlier. Like, this is a bit, well, I've tried to soften the edges to make it not seem like too much of an interview. But that's also a confidence thing from my point of view. Like, because initially you go, oh God, what am I going to do? Okay, I'm just going to ask questions. But, if you aim to have a conversation rather than an interview, it frames the discussion completely differently. And I think
absolutely.
That's why your podcast works. And that's why a lot of longer form podcasts work, because they're not interviews. They're actually just a conversation between two people. And I think that's what I like about the way you approach it. And I think that's what your audience does as well. I think that's why it's successful, for sure.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just, I just say to people, look, we're having a chat. We're just having a chat. That's all it is. You're here because I like what you do and what you've done. I want to chat about that, but we're having a conversation like we're down the pub here. So I'll say to people, have a beer, have a glass of wine, whatever it is that you want. Just, we're gonna be together for an hour or two. Let's just chat and see what comes up.
Yeah. Okay, home straight. Couple of final questions. This is not going to be a 7.5-hour podcast. With regards to your own filmmaking, content creation, who have you taken inspiration from, and or maybe who would you recommend others to watch, follow?
I sort of grew up's the wrong word. I used to follow people like Casey Neistat originally. Casey Neistat was the OG for me. Just seeing his vlog style. I love that vlog style, music, the content, the sequences cut on the beats of the music. That's really what made me think about music choice, how it can influence how you feel when you're watching a bit of content, and how it can increase or slow down the pace of that content. I just loved the way he did things and the multitude of different shots that he had. In my head, I was like, that's what I want to create. Then you get into the real world and you realize how much work's involved with all these different shots that he's got. And it's like, I haven't got the time for that. Certainly on tours, I just can't do it. But that was a big influence. Then Peter McKinnon, when he came along, just his the production quality is just fantastic. I love it. There was a young guy, I don't think he's producing content anymore, but there was a guy called Craig Adams. I think he's an American chap or Canadian chap. And he used to do things like, I remember one of the first vids I saw of his was he went hiking in the Picos. And obviously I spend a lot of time in the Picos with the tours. So it just came up on my timeline and I watched it. And it was like, I think it was a half-hour or 50-minute long vid. He hardly says a word in the whole video, but it just documents his hiking up in the hills through the Picos, and it was just captivating. It was beautiful. The storytelling was just mesmerizing. Yep. Adam Ryman, obviously, just because it's our niche, it's the biking niche. I don't think there's anyone that creates content to the quality he does personally at the moment. Yeah, and then there was another, I think he's Canadian guy, Cody Warner. Again, he was becoming a really big channel, like about 5, 6, 7 years ago. Casey Neistat featured in one of his vids, and that's what drew me to him. And I really liked his content. And then I look now at his channel and he's getting like 200-300 views. So I can see he's struggled with whatever it was. Maybe I feel a bit of an affinity because I've seen the views drop, and you're like, okay, so why are his views not what they were? Who knows? But I like him as a person. He's just an amicable type of guy. I like following what he does.
Okay. Final question. Does the filming enhance or diminish the pleasure of a motorcycle ride for you?
I think it enhances it for me. I've been doing it so long that it's part and parcel. If I'm out on the bike without a camera, it feels a bit weird. It just feels weird. I'm much happier if I'm filming something and then knowing that I'm going to relive that again when I edit. And once you get, when you edit, you have that initial bit where you just got all the footage and you've just got to go through it and cut out all the chuff. Once that's done, I hate that bit. Once that bit's done and I've got like the meat and two veg on the timeline, and you can start diving in and creating whatever the story's going to be, take this from there and that from that, and you start like massaging that content into something. I never have really a plan for the tour stuff. It's just reactive shooting. So you never know what you're going to get. Once I've got the chuff gone and I've just got the main meat of the content there, then I start figuring out what's the story I'm telling here. What's going to be the path that we go on through this bit. I love that bit. And adding the music and everything like that.
Thanks so much for being my guest for this episode, Bruce. Now's your chance to to plug all your work and where people can find and follow you online.
Cheers, Simon. It's been an absolute pleasure. Folks, hope you've enjoyed it. Me, TeapotOne. It's just Teapot with O-N-E at the end of it. I'm on YouTube. I'm on all the main social channels. Check that out if you fancy it. Give it a like, a follow, a subscribe, all that jazz. Chicken Strips Tours is my touring company, chickenstrips.co.uk. Do that with Simon Weir. What else? We've got the Brew Time podcast, so it's just BRU Time podcast. That's available in all audio formats, players, and on YouTube. So check that out if you fancy it. And for anyone that's listening that has been following along, thank you very much for all your support. Much appreciated.
Great. Thanks again for being here today. Good luck with that trip out in Australia and and everything else that you're doing next year. Take care and ride safe.
Cheers, Simon. Been an absolute pleasure, pal.